Oh, he just came out and said it.
Of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen?
He knows he
Stephen?
He knows what he just said.
Hey, Stephen, can you hear me? It seemed, Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical issue.
Plenary authority. Plenary authority. Remember that. That's what he's claiming. At least now we know that his fear response is freeze. And if you're not sure what plenary means, I gotcha. Complete in every respect. Absolute. Unqualified. No, not that type of unqualified. Though in that case, yes. What little SS Miller is claiming here is that Trump has complete unlimited control over the military to do with it what he pleases. No. And by the way, we need to make sure that this ends up in the hands of all the state's attorneys. They need to know for all their legal battles against the White House that someone from the White House and very high up in the administration is arguing plenary authority. And the funny thing is, he immediately realizes he messed up. This whole technical difficulty thing does not make sense. That's not what happened here. Little SS Miller was talking completely uninterrupted, said a word, and then froze. By the way, if you needed any more confirmation about the brain power behind this hate, if the audio had just cut out, he would have had no idea because he was the one talking. If he started getting a different audio issue, maybe like a weird noise or interference, he would have said that, or at least any normal human being would have said, I'm getting a weird noise. This was little SS Miller realizing immediately that he really stuck his foot in it. He said the quiet part out loud. One commenter even suggested that perhaps he had been rehearsing this argument to roll out at a later date. And I think that that might not be far off. Maybe it wasn't so much rehearsal, but it's clear that this is language that slipped out because that is how he's viewing it and how he's talking about it. They are prepared to claim complete, unlimited authority to do whatever he wants with the military. Wake up. By the way, if you wanted any confirmation of why AI overviews or tech companies are not your friends, when I went to pull up US Code Title 10, which by the way, everyone should download before they try anything sneaky, it was clear people had been looking this up because the top suggested search was US Code Title 10 plenary authority. I clicked to see what people were being served up. And sure enough, in the AI overview, it says that while the US Code does not explicitly use the term plenary authority, instead it defines the authority of the president to call members and units of the National Guard into federal service to suppress rebellion, repel invasion, or execute federal laws, which is a form of broad or plenary power over military forces. And I think it's important that we understand what's happening here because too many people are relying on these AI overviews and ChatGPT, which by the way, you should never go to for factual answers. Plenary does not mean broad. Some people may use it that way, but it means unqualified. Absolute. And by definition, even according to this AI overview, the fact that the powers are defined and limited to specific circumstances makes them not plenary. That qualifies them. Now, can you debate exactly how broad those powers are under those specific circumstances? Sure, and they are. This is also not the only place in our legal code where these powers are defined or limited. Lastly, by the way, even if we were to just look at this statute, even if he calls the National Guard into federal service to quote unquote quell rebellion, quote, orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of these states. And guess what? Governors, while they have to follow federal law, cannot be compelled to follow a presidential order because we have something called the anti-commandeering doctrine. It's part of that little states' rights thing. Basically, the principle is that the federal government cannot take over or commandeer a state government to use it as part of the federal government. Ojo, or oye, as it were. It's called a doctrine because this is Supreme Court interpretation of our Constitution. The idea that commandeering would violate the structure of federalism, which means, and yes, you already see where this is going, that the Supreme Court could in fact decide to walk that back. However, that still doesn't give the president plenary powers over the military. The good news, if you can call it that, is that number one, this isn't surprising that this is their goal. Number two, if attorneys are made aware of this, at least they can start preparing their arguments against this language that's obviously going to start being rolled out as part of some argument or another very soon. The third bit of good news is I figured out what Stephen Miller sounds like. First, what you gotta understand is that because he's trying to come off as tough and he's a little baby, he's in a perpetual pout when he talks. Like this. Number two, you gotta understand that he's a California boy. So you gotta place that pout on one of the characters from SNL's The Californians. I'm totally taller than 4'10". Oh, and the last bit of good news is I'm fairly certain he had to go change his pants after that interview.
Stephen Miller hasn't exactly had the best 24 hours, and if you're like me, we all need a laugh, especially at that motherfucker.
The president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me? It seems.
In case you don't know what plenary authority means, it's unchecked absolute power without any limitations. When he said it out loud, he said the quiet part way out loud, and he didn't know what to say, so his brain just shut the fuck down. This clip is even funnier because Laura Ingraham decided to make Stephen Miller watch AOC mocking him.
He looks like he is angry about the fact that he's 4'10", and he looks like he is so mad that he is 4'10", that he's taking that anger out at any other population possible. Like, laugh at them. Laugh at them.
Like, laugh at them. Laugh at them. I wish I had a hoodie on. I mean, are we
Stephen Miller's fucking face, grimacing, like trying to play it off, was fucking amazing. Also, Laura Ingraham, you don't have a hoodie on, but you have a hood on, just like Stephen Miller has a hood on, just like all of fucking MAGA and the fucking leadership has a hood on. It's just one of those big, white, pointy ones.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you're doing great from wherever you're watching me from. I'm your host and presenting GTech Stories, and I think there's something that we need to discuss, something that is happening. You know, Stephen Miller has acted so much authoritatively for the past few years that Americans have interacted with him, especially when he's been working with Trump in making all those policies, as you understand how it goes. But in a recent interview on a news channel, he said the quiet part loud that got every white American having to talk about this. One good thing about the United States today is that everyone understands the fascist natures of the United States, and they are seeing Donald Trump and those who are around him playing a one-man circus game. The authoritarian regime of Mr. Donald Trump is making a lot of people go through a lot of things, and Stephen Miller just confirmed that in a broad daylight, and he was told to keep quiet, and you could definitely see that. People in the background, because you could see his face when he had the interview, he was trying to keep quiet. And all this fascist regime that you see, Stephen Miller saying they have a plenary authority. This means that they ain't gonna hear anybody that can be on the disciplinary part or can be on the critical part, like the judges, like courts. These people cannot stop Mr. Donald Trump, according to how Stephen Miller is saying. But you know the implication that this has towards the people of the United States? It means that there is nothing like equality. There is nothing like the president of the United States listening to the citizens of the United States. And I'm glad that for the longest time now today, white Americans are seeing this in broad daylight, and they are calling Stephen Miller out because they understand what's in store for them, and they have just what they had is just a glimpse of what is happening in the United States today. And so, brothers and sisters, I'm gonna let you watch the video, and then I'll be back. I'll be sharing my thoughts in regards to this. If you're watching me for the first time, please consider subscribing to the channel, join the membership, and really get to see what I can offer you. And for those who are always coming back and watching my video, subscribing, liking, man, I'm really grateful because you are playing a vital role in making this channel grow. But until then, let's watch the video. I'll be back, and then I'll be sharing my thoughts in regards to this. So let's watch. I'll be back.
I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
Why is he doing that? What does plenary mean? Full, complete, absolute. I think he's saying that Trump would have authority no matter what a judge says. You mean if they lose the appeal, they might just send the National Guard to Portland anyway and ignore the judge's ruling? Yeah. Oh, your surprise party's today. My surprise birthday party? Hello?
Stephen Miller just said something so horrifying while on CNN that he literally shocked himself into silence. Watch this.
I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
For those of you unfamiliar, plenary authority or plenary power means power that is absolute. It's power that is not subject to any checks or balances at all. It's a legal term. So, for example, in the United States, the President of the United States has plenary authority over presidential pardons. There is no one in the United States that can tell any president who they can or cannot grant a federal presidential pardon to, right? Not Congress, not the Supreme Court, no one. The president does not have plenary authority over the military because the president cannot just declare wars wherever he wants. The president cannot just deploy the military en masse and no one at all ever check him on that. That is not a plenary authority that any president has, including the current one. So the fact that Stephen Miller admitted this, you could see on his face, he knew he had up by saying that part out loud. That was very much saying the quiet part out loud, because that means that behind closed doors, the White House sees itself as having dictatorial levels of power. Having a leader with plenary authority across the board, that's called having a king. This is a very, very scary mask-off moment for our country, y'all. But while Stephen Miller said the quiet part out loud on CNN, if you were not watching that interview live, you would have no way of knowing that he said that, because by the time CNN put it up online, they'd edited that part out entirely. So not only do we have a White House that is now saying out loud that they think their power is absolute, we have news platforms that are intentionally obscuring that fact from their audiences. This is horrifying. In fact, apologies if this video is shaking. I am on a road trip at the moment and having to film this in my car, and my hands are literally shaking from how insane this is. So please help me get this information out to folks so that, one, they know that it was said in the first place, and two, they know why it is so scary and what plenary authority means. So please interact with this video in all the ways possible, especially please repost it and let it play through for a second time in full. That gives us the best shot of getting this information out to folks. Thanks, y'all.
We have some major news that not enough people are talking about. If you watched Stephen Miller's interview on CNN yesterday, he abruptly froze after he started talking about alleged plenary authority that he and the White House have to deploy the National Guard. Now, if that doesn't freak you out, it should. He went on to say in this interview, quote, under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority, and then he made an abrupt stop. And people are saying, well, this is Stephen Miller revealing too much of what the administration thinks it's expansive and vast executive authority, especially as it relates to deploying the United States military. And truthfully, it probably is. Now, CNN says that there was a malfunction during the interview, which is what ended up making him stop. But neither CNN nor Stephen Miller nor the White House have discussed this plenary authority comment since. And well, I've said it from the beginning, the Trump administration is setting the stage for invoking the Insurrection Act of 1807. A Trump judge has said that Trump is setting the stage for possibly invoking martial law. This is real, and it should be a concern for many. So spread the word. I'll continue providing you updates every step of the way. Follow along for more.
Wow, Stephen Miller absolutely did not have a glitch on live TV, okay? He had an oh shit moment where he said something that he fucking was not supposed to say. Check this out, and then I will explain after.
You've called the district judge's ruling blocking the deployment of National Guard in Oregon legal insurrection. Does the administration still plan to abide by that ruling?
Well, the administration filed an appeal this morning with the Ninth Circuit. I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me? It seemed, Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical issue.
Anyways, yes, so you can see, clearly not a glitch. You can see Stephen Miller's body move, and you can still see him blinking. Let's talk about what he said right before he froze, okay? He said plenary authority. It sounds like he was tripping on his words right before he glitched, but he was not. That's an actual thing, okay? I'm gonna tell you what it means right now. Plenary authority is the full, complete, and absolute power to act on a specific matter without any limitation. With him acknowledging Project 2025 and deploying the National Guard to all these cities, he said the quiet part out loud. And then was like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. I don't think I was supposed to say that. A lot of you guys don't seem to grasp the reality of the situation. Anyways, that being said, I hope you have a wonderful day and you are all safe and happy.
Stephen Miller said the quiet part out loud accidentally and then appeared to glitch all of a sudden when he recognized how much of his foot he just put into his mouth.
Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
Yeah, plenary authority is broad, wide-reaching, limitless power. He just came out and said Trump is an authoritarian. That is where his power comes from, despite the fact that the U.S. Constitution disagrees with him. We're supposed to be a country of checks and balances, and Stephen Miller wasn't supposed to put his foot that far into his mouth. Though seeing even Stephen Miller realize he effed up by giving the game away, and seeing him glitch and just go, was fun to watch.
You have a Freudian slip on live TV and your instant reaction or defensive reaction to that is you're not on mute. We can see you blinking. We can see you twitching. We can see you breathing. What the fuck are you doing? Didn't even bother to try and correct himself. He just had a fucking panic attack. Plenary means absolute power. Plenary authority is dictatorship. And he didn't bother to correct himself. Plenty of authority. No, he just, what the fuck is going on?
Stephen Miller's 410 nuthead just said the quiet part out loud. They believe this president has power that is complete, absolute, and often unrestricted in scope. Then he had the nerve to act like he had technical difficulties when he let the mask slip. Roll the clip.
Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me? It seemed, Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical...
They're saying the quiet part out loud. And honestly, shame on the Legacy Media Network for continuing the interview after the so-called technical difficulty without pressing him on what he meant by plenary authority. And for those of you that are confused, plenary authority is power that is complete, absolute, and often unrestricted in scope. And it's not the first time this administration has stated that they believe they can act with unrestricted power. The president regularly says that he's the president of the United States and he will do whatever the hell he wants, even if that means occupying our cities, ordering a majority black apartment building to be raided in the middle of the night by federal authorities, or ignoring laws that he does not like. At least they finally said the quiet part out loud.
Stephen Miller claiming that Donald Trump has plenary authority is his open public admission that this administration is involved in an act of treason. Treason is defined as either aiding your enemies, which we probably already are with Russia, or waging war, loving war against your country. Now that statement alone, he could say, I didn't know what that meant, or I used the wrong word. We all know that he knew exactly what it meant, which is why he froze like a fucking little bitch that he is as soon as he said it. But that coming off the back of Donald Trump ordering American troops to use American cities as training grounds, those two things hand in hand, that just sealed the deal. That's the hamburger and the bun, baby. That is black and white, cut and dry, a declaration of loving war against the citizens of your own country. And while those two things separately are bad, together, it just confirms it. This is the nail in the coffin. Download those videos, make sure that they don't disappear, and call your fucking congressional leaders. These are open confessions in public.
Stephen Miller really said that the president has plenary authority. And I genuinely thought he meant to say plenty of authority, but it was actually a Freudian slip. That was basically saying the president is going to have complete and total control of the military and is basically going to be able to ignore all other types of authority. Like if anyone tells the president what to do, they're basically planning on ignoring any type of outside authority, any type of rules, any type of anything, because the president is just going to be allowed to use the military in whichever way he would like to use them. And the reason why Stephen Miller stopped talking after saying plenary authority is because literally he wasn't supposed to say that. He wasn't supposed to say that, but that's probably what they talk about behind the scenes. Like, oh no, the president's just going to have full and complete and total control of the military and is basically going to ignore authority. Like that must be a part of their plan or something because he just said that so freely. You know what I mean? And I know it was a Freudian slip, but that's just telling us that the president is literally planning on ignoring authority and then using the military as basically his personal power and doing whatever he actually wants to and having complete and total control while literally ignoring any other authority, Supreme Court, any outside place telling him that he can't do X, Y, Z. The president is basically planning on ignoring that and just doing whatever the fuck he wants to do anyway. So that's literally what that meant when he said the president has plenary authority. Yeah. That's insane to me.
You said the other day that you want to use legitimate state power to dismantle left-wing terror networks. Which organizations were you talking about, and what kind of state power are you envisioning using?
That's a great question. Thank you. And I'm glad for the opportunity to add a couple more details to that. So the struggle that's taking place right now is between the lawful exercise of power by the American people through a duly elected government versus the unlawful exercise of street violence in the form of domestic terrorism. So, again, the clearest example of this is when you have ICE officers who are carrying out the statutes and laws of the United States to arrest and remove illegal aliens, who are being subjected to violent attacks in the conduct of their duties. That's an example of illegitimate violence, illegitimate power in the form of domestic terrorism being used to impede the conduct of their official duties. The answer to that, in a civilized, modern, civilized society, is to use legitimate state power, grand juries, subpoenas, arrest warrants, search warrants, and every other federal power at the disposal of the commander-in-chief to identify and find everybody who is trying to use the real and actual threat of violence to impede the conduct of these federal responsibilities and ensure that they're placed behind bars. I'm not going to give you any advanced information about what these investigations have yielded so far. The Joint Terrorism Task Force has the lead, but they have found that these campaigns, that's not, of course, only against ICE officers. There's also a conversation we're having about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the 2 attempted assassinations against President Trump, the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO, the attempted assassination of Justice Kavanaugh, which, of course, had an insane sentence of 8 years. So it's the broader spectrum of political violence. But obviously, ICE as an agency has been subjected to a 9-month effort to substitute left-wing violence for the votes of the American people. No federal officer in the conduct of their duties should have to worry about being physically attacked, being physically obstructed, being physically impeded, being doxxed, having a bounty put on them. And the fact that Democrat politicians are trying to normalize this really indicates how far we've gone as a society, that there is not universal condemnation of this organized campaign of violence against ICE officers.
Wait, no, but just to follow up, I don't know of many Democratic politicians who have endorsed these terrible incidences that you just referred to, and I also don't know of any evidence that there's some kind of vast underlying organization funding them. Is that what you're indicating is happening here?
Yes, in fact, we know that it's true. But obviously...
You think Tyler Robinson was being funded by some terrorist organization?
No, what I said was that you asked whether there was some larger criminal conspiracy relating to domestic terrorism in this country. And I said, yes, there absolutely is. Now, of course, Antifa has been designated as a domestic terrorist organization. This is only one example of many in which we have, it's typically a continuum of violence. It involves both organized doxing, it involves violent threats and intimidation, it involves explicit calls to commit violence against a targeted person, and then that tends to escalate into physically violent and obstructive acts. And so it's this continuum that we see over and over again, where they're trying to use illegal violence and intimidation to disturb the operations of the federal government and federal personnel. And we see this playing out over and over and over again.
I went to high school with Stephen Miller, and he's always been an evil little dweeb. Our biology teacher refused to give Stephen permission to handle the animals because she said that he was not fit to interact with living things. So she gave him a Tamagotchi for our animal unit, and he literally just sat in the corner all semester and starved it. One time in English class when we were reading Fahrenheit 451, Stephen began to weep. When the teacher asked why he was moved to tears, Stephen said that the book burning was so beautiful and that he couldn't hold back. He was also just overall a strange guy. Like, he would take those baby carrots and instead of like eating them normally at lunch, he would suck on them slowly. And he would eat them all day for like hours. The whole school kind of united around how much we disliked Stephen. Like, he tried to invade the Dungeons and Dragons club and take over their game, but they said they didn't want a totalitarian dungeon master. So the football players came to physically escort him out of the Dungeons and Dragons game. During AP Psychology, we had a whole unit on socially aberrant behavior. And part of that included taking a psychopath test. Stephen was always very defensive about it. He said, "I'm nothing like this. Don't make me take it." And she said, "I won't make you take the test, Stephen, if you stop lurking." At the end of the day, Stephen really never did himself any favors. So he didn't get invited to a lot of parties. In fact, whenever we had a school party, everyone was invited except Stephen because he was so mean. So he would call the police and then show up at the house where the party was taking place. And then the police would look at him and say, "I see why nobody invited you to this party. We're not going anywhere. Please leave, you rat." So even the cops hated him. This is satire, but none of this would surprise me because this man is disappearing people. They are evil. Call your legislator, demand justice.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you're doing great from wherever you watch me from. Again, I'm your host and presenter Agentic Stories. Let's talk about this. Right now you understand how the United States has been authoritarian, especially those people in power. And Stephen Miller has played a key role in making the lives of people of the United States be what it is today. He is the person behind the engine of all the fascist nature that we are seeing of the United States. He is the engine behind Mr. Donald Trump acting the way he's acting today. And we are getting to see all these in a broad daylight. And one thing that still interests me is that I like the way the white Americans today have woken up and understood that it is not about color. And understood that everything that is affecting the people of the United States, the fascist nature, today it might be a black person, tomorrow it might be you, because we have seen cases of so many black people, so many white people suffering in the hands of Donald Trump. That is economically, socially, politically, them going all through these difficulties that they are going through. And so it is safe to say that what Stephen Miller said, it was a warning. He sounded the alarm to the people of the United States that, you need to get ready, because whether you come with the courts, whether you come with the judge, whether you come with the senators, or anybody that might try to criticize Mr. Donald Trump, we won't hear you, because at the end of the day, we have the plenary authority, right? And so what that means, what that suggests, and what that means for the future of the citizens of the United States and what they will be going through as time goes by. So you understand the implications that this has towards the people of the United States, the safety, the security of all these issues and how it's going to be happening. Because this is just a threat. Because he noticed that he's saying this on a live TV and then he pretended to be frozen. While we were seeing his eye blinking, his eye trying to look sideways, there was somebody who was warning him in the background, telling him that, brother, what you've said will be used against you because you've said it publicly, and everyone, it was recorded, and everyone, it spiked reaction towards people, right? So me seeing all these people coming out and talking about this is the just right time that people needed to have these conversations, because at the end of the day, Americans first, then those other people. But they have turned it. It is not Americans first. It is the oligarchs first. The United States is for the oligarchs, is there for the top 1% and those who benefit around it. Stephen Miller is a beneficiary of all these oligarchs because he's the one behind all this machine. Is the one behind the suffering of the people of the United States. Is behind all the decisions that Mr. Donald Trump usually makes. And you understand, the decision that Mr. Donald Trump have been making, they're not meant for the good of the United States, or rather, they are meant for the good of the oligarchs as they try to make this be authoritarian according to how it will serve them. And people had something to say about this video. And right, I'm going to be sharing with you what people came out and say about this, because I find it so imperative that we also involve what other people felt, people that couldn't use the camera and record themselves and talk about this. So stay tuned as I'm going through all these comments that people talked about this. Somebody said that, so basically the checks and balances are bought and paid for, rendering the system worthless if the judges won't stand up. Indeed, that's the plenary authority. That's what it means. They have the absolute power. When the president has said, he has said, ain't nobody is gonna be saying anything, right? This is oligarchy. This is the this is the authority showing its brutality of the highest order, not really going and shooting people, but not executing what the public wants, not saying or not rendering according to what the public wants. They're not going to leave room for scrutiny. Because if you try to scrutinize the president, you are in the wrong, whether you're the judge, whether, I don't know which body you came from, but you cannot. What the president says is the absolute, it is the absolute decision that he made, right? Even though it's wrong. And we've seen this happening. Stephen Miller, for that little slip of the tongue, thank you for confirming what we suspected. I hope that little slips end up in all the right hands. America must not allow the Trump regime to destroy America. America must fight back with all our might against the evil regime. So God save America. Yeah, America needs a revolution and also prayers. Somebody's saying that, pay close attention, folks. If there was someone in his ear stopping him, couldn't it have only been the news staffers and directors? Doesn't that mean that the media is not on it too? Let's fully wake up, folks. The host never exposed what Miller said. We are. And it happened because somebody stopped him in the background and you all could see. You cannot pretend like you didn't see that person trying to stop Stephen Miller from saying whatever he said, because there was somebody that tried to stop him. Right, because we could see his eyes moving. It means that he was trying to follow some instruction from a person who was from the background of. Somebody said that the fact that we have a criminal in a White House and his followers thought he was going to run this country legally is just ignorant as hell. Somebody is also saying that he is the culprit. It was God exposing him. When you know, caught in plain sight. Once you see, don't unsee. Somebody's also saying that every person in this administration feels exactly what he mistakenly say. People need to understand that in these times, nothing held in the darkness will be revealed into the light. There is no time for things to backfire. The backfire will happen almost instantly now. Somebody said that everybody wanted Trump because they wanted a guy to run the country like a business. Here we go. He bought the election. That's our hostile takeover. And now he is downsizing and creating new policies that are not even favoring America. Somebody said that legends, we desperately needed a national month of sorrow and repentance for the Trump corruption, greed frenzy, senseless hate-mongering, foolishness, and folly that has overtaken America. Somebody also said that I didn't need to hear him say this. We all know that Trump is doing. I didn't need a cosigner. You didn't notice it when he was speaking to a military officer. I hope they start their own gang and one of them becomes president. You understand how this all goes. Somebody also said that he caught himself because he knew by exposing the fact 47 can end the shutdown at any time, and that is what they don't want to happen because they have to take responsibility. 47 already doesn't adhere to any rules. We know the ultimate goal is to destroy the country from within. Please let me know what you think and feel about this video. I'm your host and presenter HTech Stories, but until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.